have Hannah Blackmore. If you come up to the table, please, Hannah. I should have said to start with that, I think you're aware of it, that it is being recorded on video, but I think you're aware of that. Thank you.
That's fine. And I'm not going to speak to all of that.
No. You've got to have the evidence with you for the questions. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you just move the speaker just around towards you a little bit? That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for allowing us to come and speak to you today. And it is a matter of huge concern that from the public's point of view, we have been cut out of any kind of public input process submissions for quite a number of years. But it's now getting to be critical. And I am conscious that I will perhaps need your help and assistance to try and get some kind of progress on implementing the visions and objectives of the weed management policy. But what's happening is that this policy has been basically emasculated, and we are extremely concerned that the only item that seems to be being implemented is that the changes in policy have to be cost effective. Now, some of you were here in the previous term when this went through a lengthy public submission process, and the huge amount of input from councillors, from local boards, from members of the public, from experts was huge. But since that's been passed, it's disappeared out of sight, and it no longer comes before any committee for any kind of consideration. Now, because in the wisdom when the super city was set up, Auckland Transport took over the vegetation control part of the policy. And I have to say to you that it was the vegetation control on the roads and the pavements which provoked the huge response from the public back in the 80s and the 90s to actually change this policy. They wanted to get it off the streets, they wanted to get it off the park, and that's what they looked to. And it was health that drove the issue. So when Auckland Transport took the vegetation control, I'm hugely concerned that in doing that, the prices, the costs of doing the vegetation control have skyrocketed. It's as if when we had vegetation control where a vegetation control contractor contracted directly to a city like North Shore, they only between a contractor and the council. There was no middleman. Now we have got this huge process where we have got council, our rates pay for council to give money to Auckland Transport. Auckland Transport have contracted to supercontractors. The supercontractors have hired subcontractors to do the vegetation control, and in some cases, subcontractors, all taking their things. Now, I would like you to just look at this cost variation that's come up. And this is some research I'm doing and I'm ongoing, and I would like to actually, the data's been extracted from this ongoing report that I'm doing, and I would like to have that tabled so that councillors can in fact go through and see what I'm talking about. But if you have a look, these are the percentage of the cost of alternative over glyphosate. And you can go back to 91 and you can see what's happened. And it's all within single figures or double figures. And then suddenly, in 2012, we have this huge leap. Suddenly we are told that the cost of doing alternative to chemical is 780% more expensive. Now, the documents that confirmed that, the ones down below it, the 680 and so on, were not released to us until August last year. So we were never able to verify. So we have been battling since then. Now, the prices have come down a little bit, but you can see that generally, and these are all prices, these are all costs that Auckland Transport has supplied to the weed management project implementation. And I am hugely concerned. I can say to myself, just looking at this, what have we got here? We've got the fact that suddenly, from contracts that are actually in operation, which are only, 50%, 40%, 18% more expensive, suddenly, Auckland Transport. So what's happened? And how do we get access to this? How do we understand what's going on? I genuinely think that if there was a possibility that Auckland Council takes back the vegetation control, extracts it from Auckland Transport, it seems bizarre to me that we have expert vegetation control and weed control officers within parks. They've done superb work for years. They've got huge experience. And yet they're cut out of the main part, which is the vegetation control. I mean, I hope this works. Now, that was the first letter I got in 2012 from Murray Noon, who sent Mike Isle out to us to say, this is how much it costs. And we could never, ever verify this. In the end, we went to the Ombudsman. And that's how we ended up getting the OIA. Now, this still persisted. In July 2013, this was a graph that was put into the first operational review, which came before council. And if you have a look at that, I mean, it's statistically, it's I can't think of the right word, but it's misleading. And if you did that at university or even at school, it's got no access, it's got no things. So, but if you look at that, anybody, a council, anybody says, oh, we cannot possibly afford alternatives. Look, it's 900% more expensive. But this is not true. But the thing said is that these prices have been supplied from Auckland Transport. We cannot verify this, and it's gone on right up until what we have here. Now, those last two items are from a review that was finalised in December. This has not gone to any council committee. It's not gone to your political advisory group. It's not gone to the reference group. It's a review, an operational review. I don't know why they did another operational review, having done one in 2013, but they did another one. And now those last two figures, well, you will have to read the main document to understand it.
Thank you.
So really, what I'm looking to you is that there has to be some way in which this sort of information, we're not, the only information I've had, Councillor Wood, has been from OIA. Now, it shouldn't be that the public has to do this. If you don't know what you're asking for, you won't get it. It shouldn't be that we have to spend all this time getting officers to search for this material. It should be available, and it should be going to committees for us to have a look at. It should be going to the local boards. The local boards are asking for help and assistance, and instead what's happening is that being told, sorry, you cannot have a change, it is too expensive. But this is what Auckland Transport is going to be implementing, not council. So, as I say, I'm asking for help and assistance here into some way we can get democracy back on board and these things can be properly monitored.
Thank you. We'll certainly get Mr. Kimpton to get his staff to reply to the issues that you've raised here today, and the issues that Georgina have raised in her letter. We'll certainly look at those.
Could I just point out actually that
we've run out of time.
Yes, I did raise these in January in a report, and I specifically replied to Dean Kimpton's response to that. and Mr. Kimpton did say that he was going to be getting back to you on all of these issues, and to the best of our knowledge, this has not happened. So
Okay,
this is going back to January.
We'll certainly, Mr. Kimpton assures me that he will reply to the issues that have been raised by you here this morning. Thank you. Now there's some questions. Councillor Watson and then Councillor Lee.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I just want to confirm that those figures that you have presented to us today have been received from information compiled by Auckland Transport and official information requests. Is that correct?
Yes, all the ones from 2012 onwards, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'd just ask your comment then on the startling revelation that the increases in the comparison between chemical and non-chemical when Auckland Transport took over was over 700% in 1 year, 2012. I'm assuming that cost then in terms of your analysis of the figures essentially takes away any of the so-called savings that councillors have been basing long-term plan decisions on in terms of what is a preferable form of weed control throughout Auckland. Obviously, if it's a 700% increase on the previous figure.
Debating. Have you got
Not debating, I'm asking a question about figures. You keep interrupting.
No,
Why don't I let the person who's presented answer the question that I've just asked without you interrupting?
Okay, well,
Point of order, please. Mr. Chairman. It is an emotional issue, but can you please rule on the importance of respecting the authority of the chair? I just do not understand how you can attack the chair like this.
Not interested in the figures,
Please,
Mr Mayor, are
I've
you?
got the floor.
order.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, to
Yes.
enable you to chair
Not
with
so
some
concerned
courtesy,
about the figures.
will you please
Yeah.
reiterate the need to respect the chair's ruling and then ask the submitter to reply to the question?
Maybe you respect people who are suffering from
Order,
chemical
order,
spray, Mr Mayor.
Order,
Yeah.
Councillor Watson. You've asked the question, and I take what the Mayor says is a serious issue that we should act with decorum when we are. And I think and questions should be succinct and to the point. So you've asked the question.
I appreciate that, Mr Chair. I just wish he'd show a little bit more concern for people that are affected by spray.
Order,
As he is with points of order.
Councillor Watson, I don't think that is really becoming of a councillor to talk
Well,
like that to the Mayor.
I think it's true. It might not
Well,
be
anyway,
becoming, but I think it's true.
Order. Councillor, sorry, Hannah, can you just see if you can answer?
It's not actually just these huge, great sums that were initially quoted, because eventually, when we got the information that we were asking for, it turned out that, oh well, this had been calculated from first assumptions. It was a crazy way of looking at the figures. So it came down to about 2 to 3%, 2 to 3 percent more expensive. No, sorry, 200 to 300% more expensive. But my huge concern is that at no time in pursuing and looking at all of these figures which I have gathered in, a huge amount of research has gone into this. I am appalled that there never seems to be an instance where apples are compared with apples. I mean, even as you saw just on that simple table, the figures varied hugely from, 200% to 111%. It goes up and down depending on what is being looked at. And there is absolutely no clarity around that. It's as if, supposing Hibiscus Bays asked contractors to give them a quote for doing all of their roads, and the contractors came in and they one quoted for glyphosate, one quoted for fatty acid, and another one quoted for hot water or steam, then they could get the tenders in and they could compare it, because you'd be comparing apples with apples. But at the moment, what's happening is you're getting a comparison, say, of steam in a high service area with glyphosate in rural Franklin. You cannot compare those sort of figures. So there is, as I say, there is no clarity, there is no transparency around what is being put through.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.